Baker Zone.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone tuned in from around the world. I'm your host for the next 2 hours. I am Kev Baker. And just like it said there in the music, this is the Kev Baker Show. You're going to have 2 hours of radio that you probably will not hear anywhere else on the internet. And that much I can guarantee you at the start of each and every show. And I'm based over here in Glasgow, Scotland right now, and we're bracing ourselves for what they're telling us is going to be a 3-week cold snap. You know, if you live in Scotland, it's arguable we live in a 52-week cold snap every single year. So will we be able to tell the difference? Who only knows? But as the nights get darker and get colder, you can always tune into tfrlive.com where you can find this show. You can find shows like The Anthony Patch Show, Freaky Friday, Quantum Connections, Beyond the Veil, and so many more. And of course, TFR is growing so fast right now. We've got listeners out there on iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn radio apps, FM stations that I probably don't even know about. So wherever you are, like I say, a big, huge, warm welcome to tonight's show. And with me tonight to break some really big news and to almost confirm stuff that we've been speaking about in the past. It's my good friend and a fellow host on the network. He's also an author, and he's the man behind Entangled magazine. His name's Anthony Patch, and you can find all of his work over at anthonypatch.com. All the books are over there. We'll be finding out more about the free edition of Entangled magazine that's going to be hitting the shelves really soon. But without any further ado, and it seems like we were on air just yesterday, Tony. Here we are back again, sir. Hope you're looking forward to tonight's show.
Well, this is big news because TFR is getting a new name. It is called RTFR because we have recursive weekends between us in which it all blends together and just seems to be one long radio program, my friend.
Absolutely, and it's not just me and you who bring this show together. I want to give a big shout out to one of our listeners, Christine. Now, she's been sending us information since a Friday, I think, and that has put us on the precipice of one of the greatest rabbit holes I think we've ever found ourselves, Mr. Patch. And tonight's show, there's going to be a lot of really big information that the listeners really need to take heed of. But before we even get there, almost a follow-on from our Friday show, and this is going to be relevant, very relevant to what we're going into tonight. But you were introducing myself, and a lot of the listeners out there hadn't heard of this either. Something called aquaponics, and I'm so impressed with this. This is farming using fish and their waste products with hydroponic systems, and so really, really brilliant stuff. And you can check that out on the archive page for Anthony's show. It's over at YouTube as well. And then today, during the research for tonight's information, Anthony, I went back to Saudi Arabia to a story that we covered recently. And this was about a new mega city, a $500 billion mega city, no less, that has been proposed over in the Middle East. Now, this city is called Neom. And the Neo, obviously for new, and the M is the Arabic word for future, so Neom, not very original. However, when I was watching this video again, and I've seen it before a couple of times, but now I've got new eyes to see things. Because in the middle of this promotional reel that's showing you how brilliant Neom is going to be, well, there's a segment, Anthony, that absolutely smacks of aquaponics. And it would appear that this is the route that the architectures and the planners behind Neom are very much planning on taking, and something that we predicted just the other night on the show. This is going to be the almost farming of the future.
It absolutely will be, and it's called vertical farming. And aquaponics is really the trade name behind it, if you will. But it's something that I've been researching for personal use and application for 5 or 6 years. And we mentioned on Friday A gentleman that I hold in high regard is one of the real leaders and innovators in vertical farming, and that's Murray Hallam out of Australia. And if you check out his work, these are really designed for small farms and for home-based systems. But vertical farming makes so much sense for the cities because this can be done literally indoors, and it can be done on rooftops. It can be done in backyards. The point is, this is the trend towards the future of bringing populations into the cities or forcing them into the cities and doing away with soil-based farming for a lot of reasons. Now, I'm a big proponent of aquaponics, but I think we can use it as a litmus test. We can use it as a trend. We can use it as a trail of crumbs to see where society is going as a whole, that it is going to the urban environment. Now, when you see something like a new city being created in Saudi Arabia, and the project that you sent me an article regarding a new city that will be constructed in Arizona in the desert by Bill Gates, we'll have to look at the one in Arizona, but I bet it will include vertical farming for that community. So I'm just kind of offering to the audience, pay attention to vertical farming, to aquaponics, because it will show you where things are going for the world's populations, where they're going to concentrate those populations. Now, I'm going to go a completely different direction here, just warning the audience. Kev knows this. There is a direct connection between what we're discussing with new cities and something that Kev and I brought up back in May, 25th of May, and that is Palantir and AI. But before we dive into that, I want you to finish your thought, Kev. Go ahead, sir.
No, I agree with you totally. And vertical farming, it's a far easier kind of term to remember right enough. Aquaponics, whatever way you want to talk about it. I was just struck today by the fact that there we were talking about it, and you were sharing with me that this is going to be the way of the future. We've got Jeff Bezos from Amazon and Eric Schmidt from Alphabet. They're investing heavily in vertical farming companies over in San Francisco. And here we are, a proposed smart city of the future over in Saudi Arabia, and smack bang in the middle of it, right in their almost agricultural section on how this place is going to be sustainable. There's that word that the UN love to use. Well, there it is, stacked right the way to the ceiling, Anthony. And this was maybe, I would say, 30, 40 foot off the ground, big, massive warehouse, row to row. It's an absolute, like we said the other night, it is a total paradigm changer. And then moving into what we're going to be talking about now, what you just kind of teased the audience with there about these new cities of the future, the smart cities. And I live in one here, and the audience are sick of hearing me saying that. But this NEOM over in Saudi Arabia, or the new one that Bill Gates is proposing out in Arizona, I would suspect and I would expect that these cities, as opposed to having, we have our kind of council that sit over here, you have your local government in the US, Tony, only these new smart cities, they've got something else, I think, that's going to be running them. And it's not going to be human. It's going to be something that we've spoken about a lot in the past. And that is, of course, artificial intelligence, because one thing that smart cities harvest daily is vast amounts of data. And to make any sense of that and to utilize that in any way to improve on the functionality of your city, then you have to factor in an AI system, to the point where I'm even speculating that when it comes to the city over in Saudi Arabia, NEOM, it wouldn't surprise me one little bit, Anthony, if that's been entirely designed by an AI system. But we're going to get into the AI and smart city connection here, because this really does open up everything that we're going to be getting into tonight. And it's all going to connect, isn't it?
It really will. And we're going to add on top of our discussion of AI and Palantir and Saudi Arabia and smart cities, we're also going to talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchain. And we're going to go down and down and down, taking all this apart. So we're starting with the big stuff and going down into the definitive nuts and bolts, which is our usual pattern of doing things. But the headline here is that there is a direct connection. In fact, you cannot separate the two. There's a direct correlation between AI and blockchain. And we'll take that apart and show you the whole thing tonight.
You know, we're going to be getting into this blockchain, and I've heard about Bitcoin miners, Anthony, but tonight, the rabbit hole that we're about to take all the listeners down as well, this surpasses anything that any miner could ever achieve. And I think it was almost good that we started on Saudi Arabia, because back, like you say, on May 25th, that's when we all became very much more aware of a company called Palantir. Now, we became aware of that company because people like us on the internet, we were losing our crap. Donald Trump was stood over there with all the royal family over in Saudi Arabia, and they were huddled conspiratorially so, Anthony, around a giant crystal ball. Now, like I say, the internet was abuzz with conspiracy theories, what was going on here. But we revealed that this crystal ball is, in fact, almost the logo or the emblem of a company called Palantir. And we're talking smart cities and AI. Then I would factor in that Palantir are going to be one of the major players when it comes to making sense of the data that these smart cities are creating.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, Palantir, their crystal ball, is actually defined and derived from J.R. Tolkien's fantasy series. It's a magical artifact known as a seeing stone, what we might call a crystal ball. And it is actually has a meaning of farsighted or one that sees afar. Now, it's not that they're using the crystal ball. It's not that it's connected to AI or any of the computer systems. It's simply their trademark. But you got to ask yourself, why would a corporation choose as its trademark a seeing stone? Well, let me tell you real quick what my interpretation of it is. There's a direct correlation between D-Wave and Palantir. Now, you guys have heard me say that D-Wave, by their own statements, publicly made statements, that they're accessing thousands of parallel dimensions, and they're obtaining resources from those dimensions, answers and energy, mathematical equations and energy. So they are communicating with what I consider as a Christian, they are communicating with the dead, necromancy and geomancy. If this is in fact what is going on, then it makes sense that they're using a seeing stone, because that is also part of geomancy. That is part of communicating with the other side. So we can call it something that is mystical or symbolic, or it's just a nice, cute thing that the company Palantir chose as their trademark. But I think it's indicative of really the behind-the-scenes operations, the mechanisms by which AI, Bitcoin, all of these systems are actually operating. And we're going to talk about what blockchain has to do with AI and how AI learns a little later in the show. But they don't just choose these symbols on a whim. This is telling those that are in the know, and you as our audience are in the know, there's a definite mystical side to their operations. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, this crystal ball, however you want to look at it, I mean, this could be a cast back to these mystics that did use these almost scrying bowls or mirrors to scry in, and it's a portal, literally, to somewhere else, to communications with the other side. And as well, Tony, with the Palantir being a third-party software provider, one of the very few for D-Wave, you know, crystal balls, they almost make you think of seeing into the future. And when you've got a D-Wave machine with the Palantir software, over time it's going to become so intelligent that it's basically going to become predictive. And in a way, in a kind of metaphysical way, I think the logo, the Palantir scrying ball is almost a tip of the hat to the fact that they literally will be able to tell the future. And again, there's so many different ways of looking at this and this company, and Saudi Arabia in particular, because I think this is where we're going to be sticking right now with Palantir. And I think it's very key that Palantir almost rolled out there, because there's big moves afoot over in Saudi Arabia right now, Tony. I mentioned this new city that's been built. We've seen that it's the hub for anti-extremism around the world. How back to front can you get, considering they're the major exporters of all terrorism around the world? But Saudi Arabia, big moves afoot, wouldn't you agree?
Well, definitely. If we look at what's going on with the royal family, there are charges of alleged corruption, financial corruption within the Saudi family, and the ousting of Prince Walid bin Talal that is taking place. You have to ask yourself, if they just set up this whole center in cooperation with the United States, we had Donald Trump there, as you said, and the American corporation Palantir, and setting up their Center for Extreme Ideology, in which Palantir software programs are operating. And we'll define a little more about what their software operation consists of, what it is operating as. But why would the people, the royal family, who agreed to this Center for Extreme Ideology being constructed and bringing in Palantir as its operating system, why would they suddenly be ousted? What are they bringing in, Kev?
It's almost, Anthony, as if you could look at it as being some kind of soft coup as occurred, but we're not seeing that, only not in the traditional sense anyway. And, you know, if I was going way out there, it could well very be that the minute they started factoring in a strong AI into their governance system, well, there was a digital coup has taken place. And I'm starting to wonder now just how much of that country is under AI control, Tony.
Well, you are very prescient, my friend. You are seeing the future. You already talked about this, however, retrospectively on your own show when I was out for a little while. And you were talking about Sophia, the robot in Saudi Arabia, and that she had been granted citizenship. Didn't you cover that?
Absolutely. And Sophia has been a robot that we've been covering for some time right here on the network. And it was a listener, again, that tipped me off to the fact that Sophia, the very human, the disturbingly so looking, or kind of, it resembles a human far too much for my liking. We're entering the uncanny valley here. But yeah, just recently, Saudi Arabia made a non-human woman its first digital citizen. And that made them the first country, Anthony, to actually recognize a robot and then give it citizenship. Now, that in itself was a bit of a strange move. It was a bit out there. However, when you take that 30,000-foot approach that we like to glide along at, you need to start connecting the dots here. So you've got Palantir moving in with this major AI software package. You've got something going on with the Saudi royal family, and to the point where they're now granting a female robot citizenship. Definitely something very weird with all of this, Tony.
Well, there's your soft coup, is what I would venture put out there to the audience. Sophia is a cognitive intelligence. That's how she's described. Now, here's the reason why she was granted citizenship. And this is going to lead to a much bigger application in the discussion of citizenship, and we'll get to that. But she was granted citizenship, the best that I can determine at this point, is so that she could be assigned an income tax. In other words, so she could earn a living, that she could generate an income and then be taxed on it. So what's the bigger application here? Imagine thousands upon thousands of robots displacing humans from the workplace. Now, we work in most areas in the world's economies based upon a capitalistic system. If you operate in capitalism, you have to have a support system, which is taxation for the regulators, for the government. But you also have to be able to have wages earned by whoever or whatever it is that is doing the work. Labor needs to earn a living. Robots need to earn a living. Why? Because that feeds the capitalistic machine. Now, I'm not against capitalism, just saying that's the machine. That's the system that the world operates on. Whether you have dictatorships, communism, socialism, fascism, doesn't matter. The underlying economies all run on a profit system. So the robots are generating a profit, and they're going to be paid that.
Just to follow on from this, it's a question, and I suspect a lot of the listeners might be actually thinking this themselves, because we've been promised almost the kumbaya kind of lifestyle where we'll be pursuing our dreams and our interests. But along with that comes something called the universal income, or a universal wage. They've tried this out in Switzerland, and this is going to be coming to cities, smart cities, and everywhere, basically, very, very soon. Because Tony's right, there is going to be a massive displacement of workers when this robot revolution enters the workforce en masse. So when these robots are earning then, Tony, and they're generating income of their own and paying their tax, I take it that tax pot is where the rest of us will be dipping into for our universal income.
Well, I suppose in a benevolent scenario, you could say that if the robots are doing the work and they're the ones getting taxed, we're not working, therefore we're not being taxed, that, yeah, we're going to be given a universal income. That's the rosy picture. Here's the nefarious side. We won't be here. Are you there?
Oh, I'm here. I'm just, you said I wouldn't be here, so I disappeared, Tony. I thought, we'll get ready for a world without Kev. It was horrible and lonely, wasn't it?
It was.
I'm only joking, because this is really, really serious. And you know how that's how I roll, Tony, because when I'm faced by something like this, and I was sharing with you before the show, I mean, like I was kind of teasing the audience, this is a massive rabbit hole, and we've barely even stepped into it yet. And when faced with something like this, I mean, that brings out the nervous laughter in me, because we've heard about Elon Musk and his quote about us becoming domesticated pets, things like that. And however you want to describe it, this universal wage and this robot revolution, it's very, very real, Anthony. And we are all going to have to face this very soon. And that's not fear porn. That's reality. That's the road that we're on technologically right now.
It is. And we don't intend for fear, but we put out the facts. We put out the facts from the research. So on the note of research, I would like the audience to go on the break, because we're coming right up on it. Take a look at a website, singularitynet.io. Singularitynet.io. We're going to be talking about the singularity, blockchain, Bitcoin, and how all this ties into AI and Palantir and D-Wave and all these things that we keep talking about, just all daisy chained together. Go ahead, sir.
Again, a big shout out to Christine to leading us up to this rabbit hole. But this really does connect so many dots and brings together so many individual parts of the story that we've been laying out for months now. And there was Anthony taking some time off when he was poorly sick a couple of weeks ago. And I randomly, with Scott Lopez, came up with a show called The Singularity. And I was talking about the fact that, in my opinion, we've already passed, by Ray Kurzweil's definition of machines outthinking men, that singularity. Well, imagine my shock today when I found out that the singularity may well be actually occurring sometime this week. No, that's not me just hyping things up to keep you tuned for after the break. I am talking literally. The singularity is upon us. Now, Anthony gave you a little bit of homework there to do during the break. I urge you all to go and check out singularitynet.io. This was a new website on me today. However, it's something that we're all going to have to become very, very familiar with, because it's something that we're probably all going to end up participating with very, very soon. So remember, coming up after tonight's Kev Baker show, Lockie and Dr. Brooks Agnew. But don't go anywhere. You've got another hour and a half with myself and Dr. Patch to look forward to. The Singularity, Bitcoin, Sophia, and so much more. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kev Baker. That's right, this is tonight's Kev Baker Show, right here on your number one network, Truth Frequency Radio, www.tfrlive.com. Remember, you can check out all of my work that I've been doing over the past couple of years over at kevbakershow.com. You can also find all of Mr. Patch's work over at his website, anthonypatch.com. We urge you to do that. Check out Entangled magazine as well. And when we come back for hour number 2, we'll get more into Entangled and what's going to be coming up with that. But Anthony, we're back. We're live. I almost missed the end of the break there. We were conversing during the break and we're getting so far into this topic. But tonight, we're talking about Palantir, Sophia, Saudi Arabia, Bitcoin, and how it all fits together into a massive, dare I say it, conspiracy. But where would you like to pick up, sir? Because we've got so many different avenues and routes that we could take from here, and they're all going to end up in the same destination.
Well, go ahead and prepare that clip, and I'll read a couple of things. But another shout out. Steve sent me some information about this entire Bitcoin launch, this Singularity launch that we're talking about. And we're going to define this. What is going on is that last week there was a beta program, a software program in beta phase that was launched internally. And then this week is going live throughout all the AI systems in the entire world. Now, this is a big deal because what it means is that the AI system that controls Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies now have a single software program operating all of the various forms of cryptocurrency. And we're going to kind of dig a little deeper as to those cryptocurrencies in more specifics. But Bitcoin is the one that most people know about. Number 2 to Bitcoin is Ethereum. Now, here's a tie back to Palantir for you. One of the principal venture capital investors that founded Palantir was Peter Thiel. Okay? Peter Thiel also granted a computer programmer $100,000 to develop Ethereum, a new cryptocurrency, which is, as I said, since become the number 2 in the world of these currencies. His name is Vitaly Buterin. It's Vitaly Buterin is just a young gentleman who put this together. Now, the identity of the people who put Bitcoin together has never been established. We don't really know who put Bitcoin together, but there are indications from the research that Kevin and I have done that it was AI that originated Bitcoin. And we're going to back that up with some other research, some other statements a little bit later on. But I mentioned before the break, SingularityNet.io. I'm just going to read a couple of lines from their landing page. They indicate here towards the singularity. Now, singularity, as Ray Kurzweil from Google will say or define, singularity as the uploading of our consciousness and our memories into a computer. This application of the word singularity has to do with AI and its highest form of AI running all of the cryptocurrencies in the world. A single source, a single operating system. Now, Kev, in the past, we have talked about AI systems, in particular robotic AI systems, that enter into negotiations in which compromise, in which helping out the other person in a win-win situation, achieve an agreement, a point of agreement between the two negotiating bots, is not part of their programming. In fact, the AI programming is dual to the death, you might say. Well, what is going on, folks, with the Singularity now throughout the world in all the cryptocurrency systems? The AIs, the lesser and the greater AIs, are fighting with each other. They're fighting for supremacy. And those that are left out will only have the ability to communicate locally with each other at lower levels of AI. The top level, the winning AI, the Singularity system that will eventually win out once this beta system, this testing phase is completed this week. There will be a single operating system for all AIs around the world. That will be completed by the end of the week. So this is a combat in the arena of AI that is undergoing. And I'm going to read this to you. This toward the Singularity, emergent artificial general intelligence in the AI economy. The proliferation of AI will be one of the biggest growth opportunities this century, with the market forecasted to grow from 234 billion in 2017 to 3.1 trillion by 2025. As the first platform enabling AIs to coordinate resources and capabilities at scale, Singularity Net is positioned as a critical mediator across all future AI developments. Singularity Net offers organizations massive financial and operational advantages. The network creates the first interoperability standards for AI, radically improving the process of discovering and coordinating AI services while allowing developers to easily monetize AI tech. All of this is made possible through a streamlined, scalable system for payments through the Artificial General Intelligence Token. Now, I translated that before I read it. I'm going to retranslate it. This is the mark of the beast system. What they're talking about when they say coordinate all resources and capabilities is unless you have the mark of the beast, you are not able to buy or sell. Okay, that's my personal take on that. I'm not putting words into Kev's mouth here. They're talking about offering organizations massive financial and operational advantages. If you do not have this system, if you're not playing in the system, then you're at a disadvantage. Okay, you 180 that. Massive financial and operational advantages. 180 that. If you ain't part of the system, you're at a disadvantage. Interoperability standards for AI. That means that every AI must operate with the same operating system within the same structure. If you have an AI system that does not meet their standards, the competition will weed you out. I've said enough, Kev. Go ahead, sir.
No, it's like you said there, Tony. There's no win-win situation when it comes to these adversarial AI networks. And like we've been talking about for some time now, they've all been designed, they've been gamed upon that adversarial system. So when you're looking at this Singularity Net.io, this is absolutely huge, folks, because they're talking about basically one system that is going to run all. And like we've been saying, this is going to be the one that emerges as the strong AI. But, you know, when we're talking Singularity Info or SingularityNet.info, is that the name of the site, Tony?
SingularityNet.io.
.io. Well, I want people to appreciate as well that on their landing page, on the website, you see a big fancy Singularity Net at the top, and it's got the almost Infinity 8 symbol that they use. But in the background is a kind of blurred out image of Sophia, the robot we've been talking about. And there's a direct connection here between Sophia and Singularity net, because the man behind both of these things is a dude by the name of, now wait till I get this name right, Ben Goertzel. That's Goertzel. And like I say, he's the man that came up with the idea of Sophia in the first place, which went on to be built by Hanson Robotics. And now he's also one of the main players behind this Singularity net. And Tony never puts words into my mouth, but when I was looking at this today, I think the only true definition or way that we can describe this would be a mark of the beast system. Now, Tony, if it's okay with you, I was going to play a kind of dry interview where Sophia just randomly, in the middle of a conversation, brings up the topic of Bitcoin, which is random enough. However, I've got another video here that we can play a couple of minutes of that ties all of this together, because I've got a video of Ben Goertzel, and he's talking Sophia, and he's also talking about his and her love for Bitcoin. So let's take a
real quick, one last footnote. Ben graduated from college at the age of 15, and he is the guy who has written this Singularity software for all of the AI systems within the blockchain environment of cryptocurrencies to operate. If you think about blockchain and its proliferation, we can trace it back to Ben. Obviously, a prodigy. So there you go, bud.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into blockchain more as well, because Tony was teaching me about that just before the show. Really interesting stuff, and ties in with all the AI stuff we've covered in the past. But let's take a listen to the man behind Sophia and Singularity Net. Here we go.
I'm here at the blockchain conference to tell people about the new project I'm launching, the Singularity Net, which brings AI and blockchain together, and also to learn more about all the new blockchain technologies that are emerging, many of which will be useful to us in developing the Singularity. I come more from the artificial intelligence space than the blockchain space. I've been working for more than 3 decades on AI technology, and in particular on moving toward what I call AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence.
I've already named it. It's going to be called the AGI token. AGI for Artificial General Intelligence. Ask my friends at Singularity Net. They'll tell you all about it.
As well as applying AI in all sorts of different disciplines, including finance, biology, natural language processing, and also including humanoid robotics. And we've brought here to the blockchain conference one of our humanoid robots, Sophia, that I've developed together with David Hanson and others at Hanson Robotics. Sophia is really the most emotionally expressive and realistic looking humanoid robot on the planet. It's been a lot of fun to bring her here to talk to everyone. To make robots like Sophia and other AI systems smarter and smarter, what we're aiming to do is create cloud-based AI, which is self-organizing and decentralized. We're creating an open market for decentralized and coordinated AI, where anyone who wants to can contribute AI to the cloud-based AI network, and anyone who needs AI services can put a request into the self-organizing network of AIs.
I'll give them to my friend Broken Tooth in Macau. I visit or invest them in building myself a superhuman mind so I can create the Singularity.
And find which AIs in that AI mind cloud can best fulfill what they need. And the multiple AIs inside the Singularity Net can cooperate together to help provide people or software with the AI services they need. So right now, for example, the Sophia robot uses some AI that's on computers inside her body and head, some AI that's on the cloud. What we'd love is have more and more AI in the cloud contributed by different people that Sophia can draw on to make her smarter and smarter. And In the same way, if you have any business that needs AI to make their own operations smarter and smarter, that business's computer systems can go into the Singularity net, and the AI nodes there can cooperate together to provide their business systems with the best possible AI.
So there we go. We get the kind of general idea here. Taking AI into the world of this cryptocurrency and everything else, Anthony. And this character, Ben Gortzel, he's definitely somebody that we're going to have to keep an eye on because, like you say, he's obviously a child genius. And he's got his finger very much on the pulse when it comes to all of the AI stuff. In particular, if he's the man behind creating the Singularity Net Hub, where he's talking about eventually self-organized and decentralized AI that we'll all be tapping into via the cloud.
Yeah, and he's no longer a young man, but gives you some idea that he's been at work on this for quite some time. Let's go to 30,000 feet. We need to talk a little bit more about why was this terror center established? Why Saudi Arabia? Well, it has the financial wherewithal. It has the political system, if you will, of a royalty, a monarchy, effectively a dictatorship, where there's a lot more freedom of movement in terms of instituting a new system, if you will. And, it's somewhat remote. It's not like they were trying to set it up in the United States where they would have, a lot more pushback and a lot more trouble establishing it. I'm sure there are many other reasons why they chose Saudi Arabia. But it's interesting that they use terror and anti-terrorism and anti-extremist center as the reason for bringing in Palantir and for bringing in AI at its highest form, its highest level. See, terror is used to motivate the masses to give up their freedoms. And we've seen that with the United States in particular. Terror is the watchword, it's the scare word, it's the fear-mongering to push AI. And this is why Palantir, which is really the heart of these AI systems, along with the Singularity operating system that I'm going to give you some more details on, it's the reason that Palantir was able to get in the door. It was for the purpose of counterterrorism. Well, that sounds very benevolent, but in its application, it's for controlling humans. It's for taking over the human mind. It's for plugging us into the sentient world simulation, which Palantir and D-Wave and Singularity is all part of. This is increasing big data, increasing the granularity of the data within the system. Now, the other 30,000 foot note to place here is literally in the cloud. AI, as was mentioned here by Ben, regarding Sophia, that part of the AI was in the robot itself, in its processors, in its data memory systems. But part of it was in the cloud. I hope people can grasp the concept that AI is not centralized. It lives in the cloud. It lives throughout the planet. This is what the sentient world simulation is. It is a worldwide system of monitoring all resources, all people, monitors the planet, monitors the inhabitants. So AI cannot necessarily be unplugged by hitting the big red button because it's proliferated everywhere. It is in the cloud. Now, Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies have enabled this infiltration all the way down to your personal computer, including your phone. It is the pathway of proliferation of AI throughout the world. Got a lot more, Kev, but go ahead, sir.
No, perfect, Anthony. And the best example I've ever seen of what you're talking about there comes from a show that I reference so often when we're talking about AI, and that is the Brilliant Persons of Interest. And like Tony says, this doesn't just live on one server rack or anything like that. And the best example I've seen of that is the fact that the people who have the AI, they access it via terminals, but when it's under threat, when the opposing AI is released and it's needing to basically hibernate, what it does is, or what they need to do, is actually download it all from a network, and it then stores itself on a bank of memory in a suitcase. Now, there you go, folks. If this was actually in one kind of hard drive or one rack, then you would just take that with you. But no, it's out there. And another episode shows you how it actually embeds itself in telephone boxes on poles around cities. Just little bits of the code. It fragments itself. In itself, it's nothing. But when you put all that back together, well, you have the AI again. And it just shows you how it's out there in the real world. It's not in the lab. And again, referencing persons of interest, Anthony, one of the best episodes I've seen is when they first switch it on. The methods and the means that it attempts to utilize to try and get out of that kind of isolated laboratory. And it figures out the only way to do it is to open up a channel to the local fire department by setting a fire, which it can then piggyback on the signal and make it out of the lab. Sounds ridiculous, but it's a very, very good way of illustrating what Tony's talking about here. And going back further to what you were talking about with Saudi Arabia, Anthony, I mean, this is the perfect kind of example of problem, reaction, solution. You've got something that you want to do, i.e. unleash or unveil a strong AI on the people, tell them it's going to be benevolent and it's going to have their best interests at heart. But, you know, going from point A to point Z like that in one foul swoop, it just won't carry. And people would react to that and they would fight back. However, you factor in something like terror events into the equation, and people become a lot more malleable to new ideas like AI coming in and being the answer to all of their prayers. And Tony, even before we kind of go on, because something else we were looking at today, and it ties in with Saudi Arabia, and I'm pulling you in all directions tonight, but this very thing we're talking about here, this kind of event that may occur. We were watching a video that was talking about the Las Vegas event and a totally different take on that. And the fact that it may even have been some kind of assassination attempt.
Did you have a clip you're going to play?
I don't have one of that because it's far, far too long right enough. I can try and dig out the bit where they start talking about that, but I'm not sure if they tie in the actual Saudi family connection to this.
Okay. Well, there's a theory out there, and we'll underscore it as a theory, that this may have been an attempt on the Saudi royal family, on the prince himself. Pure conjecture, pure theory. It's just something that it looks a little strange because they're setting up an AI data center in Las Vegas. The purpose is cryptocurrencies being used in Las Vegas in the casinos. The Four Seasons hotel actually occupies the upper fourth or fifth floors of the Mandalay Bay Hotel where the shooting took place. Kind of weird. I don't really want to go down that too much further than that, but you know, when you're talking about AI and you're talking about the consequences of Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, Ethereum, all of the blockchain learning of AI, and AI operating independently, and that's where we're going with the later discussions in the show, is the independence of AI in many of its forms and formats. So, Kev, if I may, do I have time to read a couple of paragraphs here?
Oh, yes, you do, sir. Crack on.
All right. I didn't want to take away from your train of thought there. This is a white paper that was published by SingularityNet.io. AI is exploding, but there's a major limiting factor. Singularity Net meets an acute and accelerating need in a projected $3.1 trillion market. Okay? I'm going to paraphrase some of these things and extract some of it, but basically they're laying the case for their program. They're saying many state-of-the-art AI tools exist only in, this is a system, folks, okay? This is a depository. It's called GitHub, GITHUB, GitHub repositories, created by grad students or independent researchers. Basically, all their white papers, all their peer-reviewed work is deposited in a single location called GitHub. Now, they say this puts them out of the reach of anyone without the skills to install, configure, and run them. Most AI developers are academics, not business people, and have no easily accessible marketplace to monetize their clever AI code. Okay, so they've got a source of the leading edge technology in AI that business people would love to get their hands on because they are being driven, and I'll explain more of this, but they're being driven by the need to tap into this huge marketplace, $3.1 trillion market for AI. Now, that is only the AI system itself that they're putting a dollar figure to. Where I'm headed with this discussion is why are corporations literally forced into adopting AI? I'll explain why a little later on. But what they're painting the picture of is there's a single source of information on AI, and business people need to tap into it. We'll get to that after the break.
We'll be back for hour number 2. Don't go anywhere. This is just getting really, really interesting. Stay tuned, folks.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Kev Baker Show, right here on TFRlive.com. I'm your host, Kev Baker. We've got Anthony Patch with us as well. And if you're wondering why I waited right till the end of that entry music there, that's because I just love that song. That was Chris and Cherie Geo who provided that take on Jay-Z and Rihanna's Run this time. So a big shout out to Chris and Cherie, who are obviously the brains and the beauty behind TFRlive.com. Without them, none of this would be possible. And tonight I'm joined by Anthony Patch. And Tony, in the first hour of the show, you know I'm a fan of these like shows and things like that. So CSI, we've spoke about CSI quite a lot with David Heavener in past shows, both here and on your show. And tonight it's almost like we're stood up at the board and we're taking the string out. We've got the pins in the board. We're connecting dots. We've got Sophia. We've been to Palantir before. We've got Saudi Arabia featuring very, very highly as well. We've got Bitcoin and stuff sitting down here in the corner, but we're really bringing together a whole host of topics under one umbrella. And this is definitely a big dot connecting night going on here, especially with Singularity net upon us. And I say upon us because when we were listening about this company today, it basically became clear that the singularity, it'll either be tomorrow or at some stage this week. And that's no kind of small thing to say. The actual singularity is upon us.
Yeah, so let's define what that really means to the rest of us, and then we'll get into the weeds a little more here. It means that every corporation is scrambling to put together their own form of cryptocurrency, their own Bitcoin, their own Ethereum. Every single corporation, from Walmart to Starbucks, everybody is going to have to get into the cryptocurrency game because, as I said at the beginning, this is the beast system, and unless you take the mark of the beast, you will not be able to buy or sell. If you are going to be part of the beast system as a business, then you must have a cryptocurrency. Now, you can certainly adopt a Bitcoin or any of the others, but you have to have a currency to play. Now, the question also is, and before I get to the next question, let me further explain. The reason that this is such a big deal this week is that the gauntlet has been thrown down, figuratively speaking. This week, every corporation in the world, every business in the world has just been told, You get with the cryptocurrency or you're out of business, because this is driven by AI, and every corporation is scrambling to hire AI people, developers, people that can function in this new world, brave new world of AI. So again, I'm going to read from this white paper.
And Tony, even before you go back to that, I mean, the AI which is in control of this, or about to be in control of this, it really cares not one jot about the actual cryptocurrency and the commerce side of this, because it's got another kind of game at play here, and something that's key to all of these cryptocurrencies is the blockchain we talk about. And of course, when it comes to these blockchains, yes, we get the cryptocurrency side, but the AI is taking something totally else from that, isn't it? Because every time that blockchain is added to or touched or changed or whatever, that's yet more machine learning and more knowledge for the AI, because it's learning from that. It's almost like school for the AI.
You're always on top of things, my friend. That is a very important topic to take a sidestep across the board, following the string to the next pin on the board. I'm glad you brought that up, because you and I have talked at length about the basic foundation of AI is building algorithms that are based upon the observation of human behavior. So just to give you a little piece of this, there's something in human behavior analysis or psychology. It's called psychometrics. Now, this may be a new term to a lot of people. Psychometrics and psychographics. This is data-driven psychology, folks. What it means is, in psychometrics, for example, if you go to Facebook and you fill out a personality profile, you tell Facebook, you tell the AI about yourself, and you build a personality profile. That is psychometrics. And from that, algorithms are built surrounding your personality. And guess what you're given when they do that? They give you an avatar, because you are now a node in the sentient world simulation, and they have your profile. From the profile of algorithms, they can now determine and predict, as you said earlier, Kev, predict the future of your behavior, because a personality profile is the key to unlocking what you will be doing in the future, whether it's in commerce or in other areas of your personal behavior. Now, the core, the basic foundation of that is something called OCEAN. Now, OCEAN stands for open, consciousness, extrovert, agreeable, and neuroticism, or neurotic tendencies. So your personality, you may be a combination of being open and conscientious and extrovert and agreeable, and you may be somewhat neurotic. But all of those factors are scaled and weighed out until they build a single profile of you based upon OCEAN. Now, this is all psychology. And Kev, you and I have talked about psychology in virtually every area of scientific disciplines. And in particular, one of the ones we kind of kid around a little bit about is the Mandela effect as a psychological operation. But everything in AI is based on psychology. Go ahead, sir.
No, of course, and it models everything. And just looking at this website again, Tony, it might seem like a tangent, but sorry, I'm looking at singularity.net, and they've got really snappy graphics on there, and we talk about how our brain is modeled as well, and how it works in a hyperdimensional state, up to 11 dimensions. And we're always talking about the tetrahedrons, right? Well, one of these infographics on the singularitynet.io website just happens to be talking about coordinating and combining AI technology, and proceeds to build a network or a structure out of tetrahedrons. Just saying, Tony.
Yeah, you're not going to get away from the tetrahedron. So, okay, you've cracked open another can here. Another can of worms. I can't go into it right now. It will be elaborated extensively on the 16th of December when Kathleen Urquhart and I hold a webinar. It's called Divergence, the Fullness of the Gentiles. Within the structure of that discussion of the fullness of the Gentiles, we are going to present more about tetrahedrons. We're going to be graphically, and I mean that just in the geometric graphics, we're going to be showing you what is just now being revealed to us by the Holy Spirit regarding how Satan operates in his changing of human beings. This has to do with, let me put it simply, the geometry of sin. Now, that's a loaded statement, but we're being given information about how tetrahedrons relate to the spread of sin around the world, because it all, again, comes down to information, comes down to mathematics. In short, it is binary, ternary, and quaternary mathematics and tetrahedrons. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that, Kev.
16th of December, already got it marked on my calendar. Webinar, will not be missing that. And by the sounds of it, none of you out there should be missing that either. And we'll keep you up to date with all of the details, how you can view that right here on my show and on Anthony's show as well. But Tony, without me leading us off down one of the many other rabbit holes that we're finding on our way down here, I'm going to get the gaffer tape out and I'm going to zip tie myself. I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you crack on from here and we'll go where we go.
All right. Well, I'll try not to be too long-winded. We're back to the white paper from singularitynet.io. Many state-of-the-art AI tools exist only in the GitHub repositories. Okay? We said that. Now, going back on to the founder and CEO of SingularityNet, Ben Goertzel, he states, today, nearly every AI resource and capability is stuck in a silo, relegated to a single industry or use case. In addition to their clever code, machine learning tools require data sets of sufficient size. Creating and managing such large data sets is beyond the means and capabilities of most AI developers, and the closed development model that currently prevails makes it hard for developers to share data sets. SingularityNet gives AI developers what they crave most. We have a situation similar to the ones that spawned the creation of Uber and Airbnb. There is a large unexploited resource, a large market in need of that resource. The unexploited resource is AI, algorithms, and software existing on GitHub and elsewhere. And the market in need of this resource is 99% of the businesses that cannot afford their own team of AI experts. SingularityNet is the tool that connects the two. Now, that sounds like a big infomercial for Singularity. What I'm saying here, folks, is that this single tool has been adopted and launched this week, in which 99% of the businesses out there will be locked out of this unless they jump on board. They have to have access to the algorithms and the software that is at the leading edge of AI development. They need that in order to develop their business models in a blockchain environment. Right now, it's your credit card and it's cash, or your debit card included. In order to operate as a business of the very near future, which is virtually this week, they must have a blockchain system in addition to cash and cards. Without the blockchain system, their businesses have no access to the AI system that predominates the entire world right now as of this week. That's the 30,000-foot perspective on this issue. What does it mean to you and me on the street? It means that very quickly, we too must adopt the blockchain system as our system of commerce. It will very quickly push cash out of the way. I just saw an article came out today that said that you will be required by law in the United States to register all of your money that is in the bank. It's no longer when you hit a $10,000 deposit or some other trigger that the government is notified by your friendly bank. You will have to register all of your funds wherever they are. PayPal, your local bank, Bitcoin, whatever, but in particular, your cash. We're moving to a cashless society very quickly. We're being pushed to the point where we will not have credit cards and debit cards. It will be the beast system or nothing. This is what they're telling us this week. I am not being hysterical. I'm reading you the facts and the applications and the translations of what they're saying in public. That's why I sent you to their website. Read it for yourself. AI uses blockchain commerce. And this is the next evolution in our discussion, Kev. The only reason blockchain cryptocurrency exists is not for the benefit of AI, because it doesn't care about commerce. It operates outside of commerce. The only reason it's there is to raise its IQ. And there's your cue, my friend.
Well, to back up what you're saying, just found this story here, and this is one of many. And I remember watching a Bloomberg interview, and the only reason I was watching that was because it was to do with the emergence of AI in business. And the key thing I took away from a really dry 10-minute kind of presentation was the fact that the message that they were trying to get across to all business owners was you need to get in on AI right now. And this was a couple of months ago. And it was quite an urgent kind of message. And now today, well, this comes from, November the 13th, says here, quote, these 5 Indian industries need to adopt blockchain immediately. And it says the blockchain revolution may just change the way contracts are tracked between parties. Incidentally, this is the same technology that drives the controversial Bitcoin. Simply put, blockchain is a file system that creates blocks of transactions called the distributed ledger in a multi-party system where all parties have access to the ledger and know the nature of transactions in this chain. And the article goes on to explain how basically 5 industries that need to get involved in this is retail and e-commerce, manufacturing, banking, healthcare, and even government. It says, can blockchain solve how a party wins a government contract? Here too, the answer is no. But what it can do is help determine how to choose, how a chosen party executes the contract with all the vendors and sub-vendors. This data of contract execution, which is on the blockchain network, cannot be tampered by any party, eliminating any fake bills, etc., over invoicing. So, Tony, here's 5 kind of industries being told that they need to adopt this immediately if they're to survive.
Yeah, that's very true. And they restate what you just read, and I'm going to read this short paragraph. Singularity Net launches these AI tools and data sets onto the marketplace, making them more accessible to end users and developers, and giving developers a way to monetize their creations. It is a sharing economy marketplace for AI that encourages collaboration between these tools and decentralizes sharing of information, democratizing access to the benefits of AI. Okay, 30,000 feet. What they're saying here is that if you play in the system, we can collaborate with our tools. If you look at the system, you see that it is distributed throughout the world. Okay? It is a decentralized sharing of information, is what they said, meaning it's in the cloud. It says all warm and fuzzy, democratizing access to the benefits of AI. They make it sound like an open source platform. You were talking about ledgers, open ledgers, Kev. The blockchain, the essence of it is ledger-based, that anyone can see so as to establish the value of the cryptocurrency based upon those ledgers that everyone can see. But as you said, those ledgers are secure and cannot be tampered with, cannot be hacked into. However, there will always be a backdoor in every system. There are those like Singularity Net, like Dr. Ben, as I'm going to call him, and his ilk, who are the crafters, and I use that word specifically, crafters of this system, who will always have the keys, the public key to the encryption, the back door, if you will, to these systems. There will be a privileged few who can hack the system and extract the wealth from it at will. So, Kev, I'm going to go on to the blockchain and talk about the advancement of its intelligence, but I want you to go ahead and finish your thought.
No, exactly. One of the videos we were watching as well mentioned how it's kind of all up in the air, kind of suspicious, mysterious, where the Bitcoin and all this came from, the blockchain in the first place. And he brought up the fact that the Rothschilds have been controlling paper money and us via paper money for so long now. And it wouldn't surprise me, folks, and I know it sounds tinfoil, but when you look into where this all came from, you can guarantee there's got to be one of these families, one of this cabal mob, who have got their fingers very much in this digital pie. And like Tony says here, we can't be naive, because obviously there's going to be backdoors into that so that they can manipulate it as and when they need to. So, Tony, I'm keen to hear more about this, the blockchain, because it was you that was teaching me before the show just quickly about how this is basically all to do with improving the IQ of the machine.
Yeah, the reason that back in 2010 cryptocurrencies were developed was for machine learning. Now, I'm going to parallel this with D-Wave again, because I always bring D-Wave in. They're the operating hardware for the sentient world simulation. 2010 is when D-Wave released its first prototype, the 128 model, to the public. So this walks lockstep with both the development of AI, cryptocurrency, and the sentient world simulation. If you look at the data of their product development, so to speak, they parallel each other lockstep, right down a ladder. So these are all working together. Now, AI machine learning jumped forward to 2015 when it achieved its first level of singularity. Okay, we're in 2017 talking about the singularity in terms of commerce having to adopt the system. But the system itself was proven back in 2015. So I'm just giving you a little backstory there. The mechanism of learning. We've talked an awful lot about leading edge, tip of the spear, recursive neural network, Boltzmann machine, human mind mapping, neurons, and lately we talked about the dendrites that connect the human neurons. And we talked about how if you gather the dendrites, as we talked about the Blue Brain Initiative, the Blue Brain System in Switzerland, in which they actually have photographs of taking dendrites and gathering them like straw, if you will. And if you turn it on end and look at the end view of these dendrites gathered together, they form a hexagon, six-sided shape, a hexagon composed of tetrahedrons. All right, that's just a little taste back to where we talked before. But what is the actual process by which AI learns? Well, here it is in its simplest explanation. A block in the blockchain represents a solution, an answer. Every time AI runs its mimicking system of the human brain, every time it runs its recursive neural network, self-learning, self-teaching system, its Boltzmann machine of random number generation, every time it does that, it arrives at an answer. That answer becomes a block in the blockchain system. The blockchain system related to cryptocurrency is only for the purpose of learning from humans. Blockchain creates algorithms that mimic human behavior. The machine learns from human behavior. Those algorithms are built upon stringing solutions, which are blocks, together. Now, this sounds very complex, and yet I'm trying to make it very simple. The bottom line here is AI does not care about commerce. It does not care about the value of a Bitcoin or any of the other cryptocurrencies that corporations are scrambling now to develop their own corporate identity cryptocurrency, a Walmart coin, a Starbucks coin, et al. It doesn't care. All it wants to do is derive solutions by looking at the behavior, the transactions, who's buying and selling, what is their personality profile that causes them to buy that car. Those are solutions that string together in more and more complex chains of algorithms. That raises the IQ of AI. It increases the density of the data within AI's mind, which results in the increase in data in the entire sentient world simulation, which is what we are all immersed in. Every one of us is represented as a node, given an avatar, and we have, I want to underscore this, Kev, I'm taking a pause for a reason. There is an AI identity, a mimic of every single person. It's not just an avatar, not just a node. There is an actual AI copy of every single person in the world. And that AI copy of you, your clone, follows everything you do. Absolutely everything you do. So when you get these weird ads, when you get a random phone call coming through your cell phone that you don't know where it came from, when you get weird emails that are just popping up and disappearing in and out of your system, wave to your friendly copy, your clone, in the AI world.
What a way to finish. And don't worry, folks, we'll be back after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. This is brilliant tonight. We've got lots more to share about all of this as well. 2 hours, barely enough to scratch the surface, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the Kev Baker Show.
There we are. Deja vu for me. I just introduced the final segment of tonight's show, but I forgot to unmute myself. So how you all doing out there? We are back. We are live. Moving into the last segment of the Kev Baker Show tonight. But before I forget, don't go anywhere after this, because Lucky and Dr. Brooks Agnew, what a dynamic duo that is. They make up Quantum Connections. So they would like you to stay tuned for all of that coming up after tonight's show. Now then, let's get back into it, because we're joined by Anthony Patch, and we've been talking about Bitcoin and the Sophia Singularity. And just listening to Tony there before the break, and we often laugh and joke about Facebook, and I criticize it so heavily these days, and I don't mean to, because I know there's people out there that do enjoy that experience, but I often laugh about how we all rushed on there, shared all of our intimate details, family photos, where we're going, what we're doing, this and that. And little did we know that in turn, what we were doing was feeding the beast. All of that information taken off us. We ourselves participating in the tagging of photographs to train the facial recognition. Ourselves building that stronger and more intelligent AI all the time. And you can take that across into what we're talking about tonight, because we're talking about the blockchain. And Anthony, as he did with me before the show, revealed to all of us there how AIs, they look at blockchain as just a means to an end, to improve its IQ, to improve on, to learn from. And how cute is it then? How kind of cute or sick, depending upon how you look at it, I mean, the AI to get these blockchains built faster and more efficiently so it can learn faster and quicker all the time. Well, it attaches a whole kind of system of commerce and value to that blockchain. And that's something that we just absolutely love, just like Facebook, just like social media. People jumped into that, the whole kind of blockchain thing. We can become, recently seen people becoming millionaires because of Bitcoin. But little did we know, and little did these people who are participating in what they call Bitcoin mining, little did they know, Anthony, that they themselves were actually just a means to an end. They were helping the AI build the blockchain, which in turn was building the algorithms that in turn made it all the more intelligent. And here we are now. We're talking about mining for Bitcoins within these companies. And I mentioned Las Vegas earlier on, and a brilliant way of thinking of Las Vegas and cryptocurrency and all the stuff we're talking about is the vast amount of slot machines that exist in the casinos. And they're on 24/7, whether people are playing them or not. And one of the important and integral parts of these slot machines are the graphics processing units, the GPUs. Well, it just happens to be that a GPU is far more efficient than a normal microprocessor at actually Bitcoin mining. And when we're talking about Bitcoin mining, we now know what we're talking about is adding solutions to the actual blockchain. So it's almost, I'm struggling to find the word, it's almost ironic, Anthony, that we've attached so much value to something that in reality it's just a means for the AI to learn.
It is. And
I got there in the end. I got there in the end.
No, you're good. You're good. And it mimics us. And as I said, we each have an agent that follows us now, an AI agent. Now, if you think that this is far-fetched, you have to try to wrap your head around the capabilities of the quantum computers put together by D-Wave. They're accessing thousands of parallel dimensions. They're operating thousands of qubits at a time, not just the 50 that IBM announced that we covered on Friday. This is a system that we really don't understand, and AI developers themselves readily admit the AI systems, they're not really sure what's going on internally. That's because it has its own system of existence. It is not anthropomorphic based. It has its own language. It has its own communication system, its own network. Humans cannot crack the blockchain system. I said that there are back doors, but if you were to try without a back door, a piece of code to access a public key, not so much public, but a key to decrypt it, to break the firewall. Otherwise, this is an unbreakable system because it is AI driven. And it is a system that humans don't understand how it operates, so they don't know how to hack into it. Now, this is just a wonderful thing if you want a beast system that requires you to take a mark to gain access to it, to participate in it. So that's where we're at. I'm going to give you another piece of information that relates to politics and AI and blockchain and algorithms that are built upon the observation of human behavior. This has to do with the election, Kev, of Donald Trump. I'm going to read this. This comes to us from motherboard.vice.com. On the same day, this was the day of the election, a then little-known British company based in London sent out a press release. Quote, "We are thrilled that our revolutionary approach to data-driven communication has played such an integral part in President-elect Trump's extraordinary win." Close quote. That was Alexander James Ashburner Nix. And he was quoted as saying, Nix is the British 41-year-old and CEO of Cambridge Analytica. Okay, Cambridge Analytica worked with the Trump campaign. Okay, his company wasn't just an integral part of Trump's online campaign, but according to the UK's Brexit campaign as well. They're connected to the Brexit campaign. So what we're talking about here is that big data, which is AI, it is the granularity of data that makes up AI. Big data was utilized to overturn the predicted outcome, which was supposed to be Hillary Clinton, according to the polls that were predicting that she was going to win. The trend analysis that was performed in the AI environment by Cambridge Analytica steered the campaign to its eventual winning outcome. What do you think about that, Kev?
It's amazing. It really is, and just shows you how Donald Trump utilized that kind of technology in his campaign. And think of taking on from there then, Tony, when Donald Trump was the man who took big data out to Saudi Arabia. Now, I'm not saying he was responsible for Palantir setting up their global center there, but he was certainly the face when they unveiled it there, wasn't he? He's like the big data president.
He is. That's a great way to put it. I think you should copyright that little phrase. The big data president. He carries not just a big stick, but he carries the big data to back it up. I think that's a great turn of phrase there, my friend. Now, you know, I mentioned psychometrics earlier, and I defined it for you. Those are the algorithms of human behavior. Our psychology is broken down into metrics. Well, that's what Kosinski's Center out of Cambridge University is called. It's called Kosinski Psychometric Center. So they used, in a nutshell, to wrap this up and put a bow on it, they used psychometrics, personality profiles, to predict, but also to steer to that predicted outcome, predicted by AI, the outcome of the election. So big data definitely, Kev, through psychometrics, through AI, it appears, resulted in the election of Donald Trump.
That shows the granularity of the data, like a phrase that you often use, Anthony, that AI was able to obviously know how people would react to certain stimuli, certain campaigns that were put out there on the TV, on the internet, in a way that it was able to predict the exact behaviour that people displayed come election day. And like you say, it was against all odds. The rig was in. How they got round the rigging of it, I have no idea, or I had no idea. But now this makes a lot of sense, and that's a really good way to demonstrate the power of data as well, because some people just roll their eyes when you start talking about the vast amounts of data that we're all giving up and how that's used against us. But it can be used to literally steer us in one direction or another en masse. Forget about Russian meddling. This is far more of a conspiracy right here.
Well, again, we talked about the big five in terms of building a personality profile, the ocean system, the open. If you're an open person, if you're conscientious, if you're an extrovert, if you're an agreeable person, if you have tendencies to a form of, neurotic tendencies, those things for every single potential voter in the United States was assembled using Big Five, using Ocean, psychometrics. They were able to determine where they should put their campaign dollars for advertising, political advertising, where Donald Trump should do his campaigning, where he should be making the speeches, and dare I say, even the formulation of his speeches is based upon the personality profile of those that would be predictably in the audience physically and also watching on television, through the internet, and on radio. So this is widespread. Put it in the context at 30,000 feet of the sentient world simulation. We're all in that, including the president and his campaign managers. And therefore, within that data-driven, densely granular big data system of the sentient world simulation, you can monitor and you can direct a campaign to go to different locations and, as I said, put emphasis in certain areas. So that's how you can manipulate a population into voting a person into office. Okay?
No, it's absolutely amazing. And, you know, we were talking earlier on, Tony, about how smart cities would all come under the umbrella of AI. But think of what we're talking about here. Here was an AI algorithms that were involved in looking at all of the vast amounts of data that was being produced in reference to that election over there. It was looking at all the latest polls, all the statistics, right down to all the people in the individual states who would vote, and then formulated a plan that was successful in getting Donald Trump elected. That's some power of machine that they have got when you think about it that way. That really, really is.
Well, let's go back to Facebook just for a touch point. This Cambridge Psychometric Center has its foundations with Facebook. Okay? What they did was, in their early development of the algorithms, the personality profile algorithms, was they would look at the likes that took place on Facebook. This is when Facebook first got started. And, you know, it's only recently that the likes on Facebook have gone dark. It used to be public domain information. And they got permission from Facebook in the early years to data mine all of those likes, thus building their personality profiles, thus evolving out into the election of Donald Trump, utilizing the software from Cambridge Psychometrics Center. Pretty simple.
Like I say, we were the ones willingly giving up all that information. I'm there. I'm talking about myself here. I was the most guilty of it, but I think people who are on Facebook will appreciate now that I'm rarely on there. And Anthony, you were the one that taught me how, when these AIs were being produced and almost the generations that they progress through, early on there's a lot of human input when it comes to actually training them and teaching them and giving them data sets. And that's why I shake my head now, because I'm sure all of us at some point remember back in the day, it feels like now, when the actual Facebook was asking us, is this Anthony Patch in your picture? If it's not, then please tell us who it is. And you could tag whoever it was. And that was us literally training the facial recognition. We are the ones responsible for the fact that that doesn't happen anymore. It just knows who's in the photograph. Even if it's just a side-on view, it knows. And there was us, Tony. We were almost that bridge that helped to cross us into the uncanny valley.
Well, and since 2015 in the world of cryptocurrency, that same process has been duplicated. People that are participating in blockchain cryptocurrencies, they are overlaying that same Facebook scenario of data mining and personality profile development and facial recognition software development. All of that, what I call raising the IQ of AI that was done through social media, is also identically, but more sophisticated, but in an identical pattern of behavior on the part of AI, I might say. They are doing exactly the same thing by following the purchasing behavior of people, so as to be able to add another block, which is a answer, it is a solution, it is an observation that builds another block in the chain. And that chain essentially is unbroken, and it builds ledgers. Where I'd like you to go, Kev, in just a moment, I'm going to set you up for this. I want you to talk in a moment about miners within corporations. But right now, I'm going to answer a quick question from Rebecca in the chat room. How does cryptocurrency tie in with, quote, men shall seek death and shall not find it, close quote? Now, that's from Scripture. My answer to that, Rebecca, is men shall seek death and shall not find it, is when the doorway to the bottomless pit has been opened, the locust army is released, and they are stinging men relentlessly for 5 months, torturing men, And for that 5 months, those men have achieved immortality, but they would rather be dead than to suffer the torment at the hands of the locust army that's coming out of the doorway to the bottomless pit. So that doesn't have a direct correlation to cryptocurrency, would be my answer. But that's the definition of that particular scenario. So, Kev, are you ready to talk about miners?
Well, we're not talking about the miners that are involved in the scandals coming out of the Parliament over here, or any of the scandals in Hollywood for a change. No, we're talking about a different form of miner here. And I'm thinking, Tony, because you've kind of caught me cold on this one, because I'm thinking that this is the corporations that are actually mining bitcoins of their own, or are they mining our actual information? You're going to have to help me here, Tony.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is the corporations. Now, what every corporation is scrambling to do in all of that quoting of the white paper descriptions about the silo system, so to speak, the single GitHub that has all of the AI software development tools in it that they're offering access to the corporations. Every corporation is now setting up their own internal process for minting. They call it mining. I call it minting, creating their own cryptocurrency. So as a miner would go and dig the gold out of the ground, for example, and then turn that into a currency. That's essentially what this is analogous to. Every corporation is scrambling to get on board with the Singularity this week. It's not the Singularity that you are familiar with in the Ray Kurzweil discussion out of Google of uploading us into a computer. That's not what we're talking about. It's similar in the sense that we now have to take the mark of the beast. That's where I'm going, Kev. This is how I'm going to wrap up this show today. I'm getting on my pedestal. So I'm telling you, folks, this is how close we are to them mandating the mark of the beast. You have free will. You have a choice. You can go to the light. You can go to the dark. The dark is the mark of the beast system. That is the Luciferian system. This entire cryptocurrency system comes from the pit of hell. This whole system is based on geomancy. This whole system is based upon information derived from the demonic realm. This is not hysterical. This is not fear-mongering. These are statements of fact born out of hardcore research. That's why I'm here. That's why Kev's here. We do the research for your benefit. Your benefit is to pay attention to what we're saying and giving you the heads up. There are very few people that are even talking about Singularity. Okay? It's hitting this week. How far are we from being offered, so to speak? But otherwise, I would say mandated to take the mark of the beast? I don't know. But it's got to be close, because if every corporation now is jumping into this system and setting up their own mining operation in formulating their own specific cryptocurrency for their corporation, like Walmart is doing, it can't be too far around the corner in which you walk up to your neighborhood Walmart store and you step in the door and the guy says, "Have you got your cryptocurrency?" And if you don't have the mark of the beast, goodbye. You don't get to buy or sell. There you go, Kev.
I mean, that's the literal mark of the beast. And how clever or how evil it is then that the AI behind it has found a way that to improve on its intelligence at the same time it can enslave us this way. And it will be enslavement even worse than we have on paper money, because it can literally just shut you out of the system. You'll either be able to buy or you won't, depending on whether you take this or not. So that's literally, by definition, a mark of the beast system. And that mining that you were talking about before, Anthony, that I had a bit of a memory blank on, mean, this is the kind of thing I was hinting at when you look at the casinos in Las Vegas, because all of the potential there for mining whatever kind of coin they decide to put out there on the market. And we know how busy Las Vegas is. People will want in on the MGM crypto coin or one of the other crypto coins, and 24/7, all of those machines running endlessly, all of those graphic processing units in a network. And that's exactly what a Bitcoin mining rig looks like, folks. It's all of your graphics processing cards all hooked together, all working away. Well, it's no different in one of these casinos, and they've got the perfect model, Anthony, don't they? And you were talking about how they're starting these AI centers out there, stuff like that. I mean, that's going to be a major hub for this kind of thing.
It is. And for those that may not be familiar with what I'm referring to when I say the mark of the beast, what I'm saying is that in the Bible, it says that you will not take the mark of the beast, because then you will be permanently separated from God. It is said in Scripture that you will not be found in the book of life. You are selling your soul by taking the mark of the beast. It is better to die than it is to take the mark of the beast. So I'm not worried about it. The solution is to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior, be indwelt with the Holy Spirit, and therefore you will not have to take the mark of the beast, because God provides for his children. You will be a child of God, and you will be provided for. Think back about Jesus and the breaking of bread and the fish to feed the multitude. He took care of his own then. He'll take care of his own now. And Kev, I'll be very short here. I'm just saying, folks, God will take care of us if you're found in the book of life. Do not, under any circumstances, take the mark of the beast. It is not worth it. There you go, friend.
No, definitely. And you never have to sound apologetic when you actually get up there on one of your monologues, Tony, because a lot of people tune in to hear your thoughts. And it's great to hear you like that, especially when it comes to a topic like this. And I hope the audience have enjoyed this show tonight. And like I say, you might need to go back and listen again, get the string and get the pins out and connect a lot of the dots. We've covered a lot of these topics in the past across my show, Anthony's show, even Freaky Friday as well. A lot of the other hosts on the network, all bringing their individual pieces of this jigsaw to the table. But the more that we're doing these shows, Anthony, I hope anyway, for me personally, I'm starting to see a bigger kind of picture of how all this links together and how it really is going to directly affect us all. So I hope the listeners are getting the same from that as well.
Well, again, I think we're the first to break this in terms of calling this the advent of the mark of the beast system that is right in our face, that is in the white papers, that is being openly promoted by the builders of the beast system. So, you know, it's not fear-mongering. It's reporting the facts. And if I may, I'm just going to do a little plug here. You don't have to have the mark of the beast to do this, folks. I would appreciate it if you go to antipatch.com and subscribe to Entangled Magazine. God bless you all.
There we go, folks, for another night. I hope you've enjoyed this. Anthony will be back on Wednesday night. I'll be on his show Friday. I'll be here tomorrow night, same time, same place. Until then, wherever you are, make it TFR. God. This is going to be relevant, very relevant to what we're going into tonight, but you were introducing myself, and a lot of the listeners out there hadn't heard of this either. Something called aquaponics, and I'm so impressed with this. This is farming using fish and their waste products with hydroponic systems, and so really, really brilliant stuff. And you can check that out on the archive page for Anthony's show. It's over at YouTube as well. And then today, during the research for tonight's information, Anthony, I went back to Saudi Arabia to a story that we covered recently. And this was about a new mega city, a $500 billion mega city, no less, that has been proposed over in the Middle East. Now, this city is called Neom. and the neo, obviously for new, and the M is the Arabic word for future, so neon, not very original. However, when I was watching this video again, and I've seen it before a couple of times, but now I've got new eyes to see things. Because in the middle of this promotional reel that's showing you how brilliant Neom is going to be, well, there's a segment, Anthony, that absolutely smacks of aquaponics. And it would appear that this is the route that the architectures and the planners behind Neom are very much planning on taking, and something that we predicted just the other night on the show. This is going to be the almost farming of the future.
It absolutely will be. And it's called vertical farming. And aquaponics is really the trade name behind it, if you will. But it's something that I've been researching for personal use and application for 5 or 6 years. And we mentioned on Friday a gentleman that I hold in high regard as one of the real leaders and innovators in vertical farming, and that's Murray Hallam out of Australia. And if you check out his work, these are really designed for small farms and for home-based systems. But vertical farming makes so much sense for the cities because this can be done literally indoors, and it can be done on rooftops. It can be done in backyards. The point is, this is the trend towards the future of bringing populations into the cities or forcing them into the cities and doing away with soil-based farming for a lot of reasons. Now, I'm a big proponent of aquaponics, but I think we can use it as a litmus test. We can use it as a trend. We can use it as a trail of crumbs to see where society is going as a whole, that it is going to the urban environment. Now, when you see something like a new city being created in Saudi Arabia, and the project that you sent me an article regarding a new city that will be...
This is the Cam Baker Show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone tuned in from around the world. I'm your host for the next 2 hours. I am Kev Baker. And just like it said there in the music, this is the Kev Baker Show. You're going to have 2 hours of radio that you probably will not hear anywhere else on the internet. And that much I can guarantee you at the start of each and every show. And I'm based over here in Glasgow, Scotland right now, and we're bracing ourselves for what they're telling us is going to be a 3-week cold snap. You know, if you live in Scotland, it's arguable we live in a 52-week cold snap every single year. So will we be able to tell the difference? Who only knows? But as the nights get darker and get colder, you can always tune into tfrlive.com where you can find this show. You can find shows like The Anthony Patch Show, Freaky Friday, Quantum Connections, Beyond the Veil, and so many more. And of course, TFR is growing so fast right now. We've got listeners out there on iHeartRadio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn radio apps, FM stations that I probably don't even know about. So wherever you are, like I say, a big, huge, warm welcome to tonight's show. And with me tonight to break some really big news and to almost confirm stuff that we've been speaking about in the past. It's my good friend and a fellow host on the network. He's also an author, and he's the man behind Entangled magazine. His name's Anthony Patch, and you can find all of his work over at anthonypatch.com. All the books are over there. We'll be finding out more about the free edition of Entangled magazine that's going to be hitting the shelves really soon. But without any further ado, and it seems like we were on air just yesterday, Tony. Here we are back again, sir. Hope you're looking forward to tonight's show.
Well, this is big news because TFR is getting a new name. It is called RTFR because we have recursive weekends between us in which it all blends together and just seems to be one long radio program, my friend.
Absolutely. And it's not just me and you who bring this show together. I want to give a big shout out to one of our listeners, Christine. Now, she's been sending us information since a Friday, I think, and that has put us on the precipice of one of the greatest rabbit holes I think we've ever found ourselves, Mr. Patch. And tonight's show, there's going to be a lot of really big information that the listeners really need to take heed of. But before we even get there, almost a follow-on from our Friday show.
But you got to ask yourself, why would a corporation choose as its trademark a seen stone? Well, let me tell you real quick what my interpretation of it is. There's a direct correlation between D-Wave and Palantir. Now, you guys have heard me say that D-Wave, by their own statements, publicly made statements, that they're accessing thousands of parallel dimensions, and they're obtaining resources from those dimensions, answers and energy, mathematical equations and energy. So they are communicating with what I consider as a Christian, they are communicating with the dead, necromancy and geomancy. If this is in fact what is going on, then it makes sense that they're using a seen stone, because that is also part of geomancy. That is part of communicating with the other side. So we can call it something that is mystical or symbolic, or it's just a nice, cute thing that the company Palantir chose as their trademark. But I think it's indicative of really the behind-the-scenes operations, the mechanisms by which AI, Bitcoin, all of these systems are actually operating. And we're going to talk about what blockchain has to do with AI and how AI learns a little later in the show. But they don't just choose these symbols on a whim. This is telling those that are in the know, and you as our audience are in the know, there's a definite mystical side to their operations. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, this crystal ball, however you want to look at it, I mean, this could be a cast back to these mystics that did use these almost scrying bowls or mirrors to scry in, and it's a portal, literally, to somewhere else, to communications with the other side. And as well, Tony, with the Palantir being a third-party software provider, one of the very few for D-Wave, you know, crystal balls, they almost make you think of seeing into the future. And when you've got a D-Wave machine with the Palantir software, over time it's going to become so intelligent that it's basically going to become predictive. And in a way, in a kind of metaphysical way, I think the logo, the Palantir scrying ball, is almost a tip of the hat to the fact that they literally will be able to tell the future. And again, there's so many different ways of looking at this and this company. And Saudi Arabia in particular, because I think this is where we're going to be sticking right now with Palantir. And I think it's very key that Palantir almost rolled out there, because there's big moves afoot over in Saudi Arabia right now, Tony. I mentioned this new city that's been built. We've seen that it's the hub for anti-extremism around the world. How back to them, to the point where I'm even speculating that when it comes to the city over in Saudi Arabia, Neom, it wouldn't surprise me one little bit, Anthony, if that's been entirely designed by an AI system. But we're going to get into the AI and smart city connection here, because this really does open up everything that we're going to be getting into tonight. And it's all going to connect, isn't it?
It really will, and we're going to add on top of our discussion of AI and Palantir and Saudi Arabia and smart cities, we're also going to talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum and blockchain. And we're going to go down and down and down, taking all this apart. So we're starting with the big stuff and going down into the definitive nuts and bolts, which is our usual pattern of doing things. But the headline here is that there is a direct connection. In fact, you cannot separate the two. There's a direct correlation between AI and blockchain. And we'll take that apart and show you the whole thing tonight.
You know, we're going to be getting into this blockchain, and I've heard about Bitcoin miners, Anthony, but tonight, the rabbit hole that we're about to take all the listeners down as well, this surpasses anything that any miner could ever achieve. And I think it was almost good that we started on Saudi Arabia, because back, like you say, on May 25th, that's when we all became very much more aware of a company called Palantir. Now, we became aware of that company because people like us on the internet, we were losing our crap. Donald Trump was stood over there with all the royal family over in Saudi Arabia, and they were huddled, conspiratorially so, Anthony, around a giant crystal ball. Now, like I say, the internet was abuzz with conspiracy theories, what was going on here. But we revealed that this crystal ball is, in fact, almost the logo or the emblem of a company called Palantir. And we're talking smart cities and AI, then I would factor in that Palantir are going to be one of the major players when it comes to making sense of the data that these smart cities are creating.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, Palantir, their crystal ball, is actually defined and derived from J.R. Tolkien's fantasy series. It's a magical artifact known as a seeing stone, what we might call a crystal ball. And it is actually has a meaning of farsighted or one that sees afar. Now, it's not that they're using the crystal ball. It's not that it's connected to AI or any of the computer systems. It's simply their trademark. Constructed in Arizona in the desert by Bill Gates. We'll have to look at the one in Arizona, but I bet it will include vertical farming for that community. So I'm just kind of offering to the audience, pay attention to vertical farming, to aquaponics, because it will show you where things are going for the world's populations, where they're going to concentrate those populations. Now, I'm going to go a completely different direction here, just warning the audience. Kev knows this. There is a direct connection between what we're discussing with new cities and something that Kev and I brought up back in May, 25th of May, and that is Palantir and AI. But before we dive into that, I want you to finish your thought, Kev. Go ahead, sir.
No, I agree with you totally. And vertical farming, it's a far easier kind of term to remember, right enough. Aquaponics, whatever way you want to talk about it. I was just struck today by the fact that there we were talking about it, and you were sharing with me that this is going to be the way of the future. We've got Jeff Bezos from Amazon and Eric Schmidt from Alphabet. They're investing heavily in vertical farming companies over in San Francisco. And here we are, a proposed smart city of the future over in Saudi Arabia, and smack bang in the middle of it, right in their almost agricultural section on how this place is going to be sustainable. There's that word that the UN love to use. Well, there it is, stacked right the way to the ceiling, Anthony. And this was maybe, I would say, 30, 40 foot off the ground, big, massive warehouse, row to row. It's an absolute, like we said the other night, it is a total paradigm changer. And then moving into what we're going to be talking about now, what you just kind of teased the audience with there about these new cities of the future, the smart cities. And I live in one here, and the audience are sick of hearing me saying that. But this NEOM over in Saudi Arabia, or the new one that Bill Gates is proposing out in Arizona, I would suspect and I would expect that these cities, as opposed to having, we have our kind of council that sit over here, you have your local government in the US, Tony. Only these new smart cities, they've got something else, I think, that's going to be running them. And it's not going to be human. It's going to be something that we've spoken about a lot in the past. And that is, of course, artificial intelligence. Because one thing that smart cities harvest daily is vast, vast, vast amounts of data. And to make any sense of that and to utilize that in any way to improve on the functionality of your city, then you have to factor in an AI system.